teacher and you're a little tired, it's just easy to mix up days on the calendar. And I came to school on book character day, which, spoiler alert, was not actually book character day, dressed in full farmer costume with freckles painted on my face, braids, a farmer hat, overalls, the whole 9 yards. And not only was it not book character day, it was a day that I had several parent teacher conferences. So I did my best to make my overalls look professional, wash the freckles off, unbraid my hair, but it just wasn't quite right. That was pretty awkward walking into those conferences. Reflect on these moments so often, but it is the best when a kid reaches a goal that they've set for themselves, like a tremendous reading goal, and they're sitting there in front of you and they read you a book that they were never able to read before, and they've grown 3 years worth of reading levels in the year, and you're just sitting there looking at each other like, this just happened. It is the best feeling. It gives me chills. When that happens, we'll usually call up their parent and tell them how awesome it was. We'll just run down the hall and knock on doors and tell other teachers what an amazing goal they've met. I mean, it's the best. It changes that kid's life forever and builds their confidence as a learner. It's my favorite. Honestly, 100 tiny horses is a pretty overwhelming thought, like just being swarmed by 100 small horses. So I think I'm going to take the one horse-sized duck, one giant duck. I'm just hoping I can outrun it. That's terrifying. I really hate to admit it, but our cat is the thing I talk about too much at parties. I like to show people pictures of our cats, tell them the funny new thing that she's doing. And if you don't have a cat, you really just don't care about other people's cats. So it's not a great party conversation topic. I love going for walks. I love going for walks with people. I love listening to podcasts while I go for walks. I like taking the same route in our neighborhood all the time, but I also love walking in new places and on greenways and hiking. That's definitely the hobby that has been most consistent in my life that I am most passionate about. Professional development can be such a touchy subject as a teacher because I feel like there are two categories. It's either not helpful and boring and you already know how to do it, or it's really helpful and insightful, but then you go back to your classroom the day after and you're like, I don't know how to implement all this. And so it doesn't end up being useful. The best kind of PD, the really good golden PD, is the stuff that gives you snippets that are really helpful and you feel like you can implement them the next day when you walk into your classroom. Current favorite TV show, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We loved that show growing up, and it's just nostalgic and sweet and makes me laugh out loud. And when I watch it, I feel like I'm hanging at home with the Banks family. Oh, parents make me laugh all the time. Parent teacher conferences are pretty much my favorite because in those moments, parents will share information with you about their child, stories of things that happen at home that will just crack you up. I love it. I doubted myself so much as a first year teacher, wondering, am I even doing this right? If you focus too much on having fun and social emotional learning, then you wonder, are they learning enough? And if you focus wholly on curriculum, you're wondering, are they well rounded enough? Are they having fun? And so you really have to find your sweet spot. And a lot of times, teachers down the hall will act like you're not being strict enough or you're being too strict and like they've got it down. But the best mentor teachers will tell you that we're all learning to do our best along the way. And it really takes time to find your sweet spot. So we were doing some basic life trivia in our classroom. This is probably a longer story, but I'll try to make it short. And one of the questions was, what animal gives us beef? Because a lot of kids don't know where our food comes from. So everybody's talking and whispering with their trivia group, and one of my kids just cannot contain himself, so enthusiastically shouts, snakes. And we're all looking around like, snakes? Beef? Not quite. Try cows. But then he says, snakes. They're always trying to fight you. I got beef with snakes. A lot of people have beef with snakes. That was a pretty funny moment. All right, favorite teacher, hands down, Miss Von Hoff, third grade. She made learning so much fun. She did tons of exploratory hands-on units. Like when we learned about the planets, she built a spaceship in our classroom. When we were learning about history in the early 1800s, she turned our room into a one-room schoolhouse. And we had to dress up all week long like we were from the 1800s. And we each had a character we had to play. And we learned all these rhymes and that we would have learned if we were in school back then. So she just made learning really interactive, and she turned really rigorous, challenging material into a challenge that we all enjoyed taking on. And I try to emulate a lot of that in my own classroom too. So every year I've had at least one student who stands out among the rest with just some exceptionally challenging needs. And usually that means getting really creative, figuring out what those needs are, how we can meet them, and then what resources we need to pull to help support that child that year. Sometimes it's the school counselor, sometimes it's just the front office staff and somebody who's got a really big heart for that child and wants to kind of take them under their wing and support them. Um, but I can definitely think of one from every year. A few years ago, my husband and some of our friends and I all went and hiked in Yosemite. So we hiked up mountains for 3 days and slept in the mountains at night for 2 nights. We camped in tents and we carried all our gear on our back. And I was just really proud of ourselves for taking on that adventure. I learned so much during that time, and it was just so sweet and peaceful and fun to be in nature and with people that I love.